However, for reasons that I can't quite come to terms with yet, Nickelodeon wants the Fairly OddParents to still be relevant. From Fairly Odder to A New Wish. You can't argue that Nickelodeon isn't really trying to make Fairly OddParents a thing again. And with trash piles like this, you can't really argue that they should be trying to make Fairly OddParents a thing again. And, please, just let this franchise die.
I wondered if...
Well, it looks like I owe someone an apology. When A New Wish was announced earlier this year, I was incredibly dismissive of it. I think that a lot of people were. The memory of the original show has been beyond butchered in the past 2 decades. When Fairly OddParents originally debuted back in 2001, it became Nickelodeon's silver show, second only to the Golden Sponge. And with Nickelodeon being Nickelodeon, they were intent on wringing every last doubloon out of it. What followed was 10 seasons that I've been ranting about for over a decade now. I've covered so many episodes of the show's fall from grace by now that it'd be redundant to go on into all of them. Baby, Dog, Waste of Imagination, live action movies, Oaxis. Fairly OddParents, one of the most beloved shows of the early 2000s, didn't end with a bang. It ended with Certifiable Super Sitter, which was famous for more than anything else, that screenshot that broke literally every single rule that the franchise had ever established about its world. And with the utter train wreck that was Fairly Odder still in recent memory, it became harder and harder to remember why anyone ever liked this franchise to begin with. Its corpse was desecrated and its bones were long picked clean. And I thought that that's how the story would have ended, or how it would keep going on forever. I had a feeling that this latest reboot would have just been another kick in the teeth to a franchise that was long past its prime, and not something worth caring about in the slightest. Then this happened.
Miserable? Hey kid, I'm Poof. Well, at least I was. I changed my name to Perry.
So, this character came out and it kinda lit the internet on fire. If you're not familiar, this is Poof, all grown up, going by Perry, short for Periwinkle. It's been a while since I think that I've seen the entire internet fall in love with the character design so fast and so thoroughly. It's easy to forget that this is the same character, sort of, that was sorta credited for ruining the Fairly OddParents altogether, or at least was a shorthand stand-in for the show's main problem in its later seasons. Desperately adding new characters that it didn't want to utilize, or didn't know how to utilize. It's especially surprising since we didn't get much about his character from the brief clips that trended online. His debut was essentially a cliffhanger to an episode in the middle of the season. But watching these clips, I did notice something immediately: the art style. I made it no secret about my feelings about what the Fairly OddParents would have looked like in 3D, whenever I got the chance. I tended to bring up the Jimmy Timmy Power Hour specials. It was my go-to example for what 2D animation could do that 3D animation couldn't. Because there's no way around this. The Fairly OddParents characters in this special look like ass. Abject ass. They're gross abominations that were never designed to be seen in 3 dimensions. The characters are very appealing in a 2D style, but it's a style that uses certain exaggerations and shapes that just look hideous in the 3rd dimension.
You always hold your head at a 3/4 angle because you look weird otherwise. I don't see how that proves I'm a poser.
And when I heard that A New Wish would be in 3D, I had more than my fair share of trepidation. I was expecting like some terror bad shit, especially with the small budgets that Nickelodeon threw at even their star shows. A lot of this review is me eating crow, I swear, because this is the best the Fairly OddParents has ever looked. Do I even need to explain how wonderful this looks and how well it captures the original style? Just look at it. I love that A New Wish is so smart about what they're doing. The animation has a lot of people who worked on the Peanuts movie, and you could see that they took a lot of cues from that production. A New Wish is a 3D show, undoubtedly. Everything has depths, the rooms are in a 3D space, but it's shot and animated like a 2D show. And in doing this, it just looks wonderful, especially with how much technology has upgraded in the past 20 years. And with this, the 3D becomes a boon instead of a hindrance. With 3D, you can use a lot of cinematic techniques such as panning shots and zooms that are so much easier and more practical, and the show takes advantage of all of this. Honestly, altogether, A New Wish is probably the best looking 3D Nicktoon, and this is something that the internet definitely took notice of. There was some debate about the show deliberately skipping frames, and it didn't help that a lot of people's first look at this was an unfinished leak of the pilot that didn't do the finished show justice in any regard. But it seems that most people are totally on board with how this looks now, as it got a lot of people to watch the show. More than the advertising did, at least. What, we don't have a trailer? Oh, that's right. All of this led to a debate that actually surprised me. Some people think that A New Wish is actually better than the original. Like, the original. Like, if you only count seasons 1 through 5 the original. And, yes. I'm gonna go with a yes on that. I'd still say that the specials like Channel Chasers or School's Out are peak Fairly OddParents, but pound for pound, A Newish kinda sorta blows the original completely out of the water. Hazel Wells sunk Timmy Turner's battleship, and I kinda love it. One thing that occurred to me while I was watching the show and preparing for this review is that Timmy Turner, at least in concept, is not a very interesting character. How does that theme song go again?
Timmy is an average kid that no one understands.
He likes comics and he likes video games. And he gets bad grades. Like, literally every single cartoon boy in the 2000s. The most interesting thing about Timmy Turner is the hat. Him wearing a pink hat says something about him, even if he doesn't say anything about his hat. He comes from an era where characters, especially in kids media, were written to be as appealing to the widest audience possible. Timmy Turner likes video games and comics. You, aged 7 to 11 boy, also like video games and comics. You can imagine yourself as Timmy Turner and just slot yourself into his adventures. It's the same deal with every character from Harry Potter to, I don't know, Adam Lyon from My Gym Partner's a Monkey. This style isn't as popular these days. Escapist characters tend to get a bum rap from the get-go, largely due to this one here, so writers now have the attitude of getting a little bit more specific. The personal is valued over the widest audience. Hazel not only reads manga, but she's incredibly into rocks and wants to be a geologist, which helps her stand out from the 12 other times they tried to give a random kid fairy godparents. And I do suppose I should bring this up. With Hazel, I was kind of worried at first because there's no light way of putting this. Butch Hartman does not know how to write girls. Okay, that's kind of incorrect. Butch Hartman knows how to write two girls. One who is absolutely perfect in every regard, into kale snacks or vegetarianism, because girl is vegetable, and very obviously morally superior to her male counterpart. Or the other character he can write is Vicky. When you watch enough Butch Hartman stuff back to back to back, 90% of his female characters fall into one of those two groups, and the other 10% was written by someone else. Hazel is written by someone else. I can't say that there's no DNA from, say, Chloe in her Inception, but Hazel is actually not cartoonishly perfect. She's a character who is allowed to have selfish moments and character flaws. Just for an off-the-wall example, I can't imagine Chloe wishing that her dud potato could actually light a bulb, because Chloe didn't want to read a science book. I can't imagine that for any other female Butch Hartman character that we're supposed to like. And even with that in mind, Hazel always does mean well, and not in an obnoxious, I know better than you Chloe kind of way. Hazel does get uppity at certain people for certain reasons, but it's usually because they deserve it, and they've directly crossed her. Hazel is actually a great character. And I know that a lot of this sounds like really, really, really basic, and everyone should get it, but these are hurdles that I've seen tripped up a lot. A lot. Especially recently. I don't need to come up with examples because you already know examples. Gah! Flashback! Kill it! One thing that I absolutely did not expect is how great Cosmo and Wanda were on this one. As the original series went on, whatever character they did have kinda evaporated. They were there to grant a wish, and then the plot forced them to get rid of their wand. And that usually resulted in just one of them, and by one of them I mean Cosmo, being incredibly stupid. I can't say that they don't have stupid moments in the show, they do, but they're believable moments of stupid. The best way to describe Cosmo and Wanda in A New Wish is that it feels like a reset. Like all of their flanderization over the decades was just snapped away. And now we've got something that's very reminiscent of how it began. Actually, I think it's better than how it all began. They're still not the smartest, but at the very least, they're smarter than Hazel. They know better than her. And yes, I mean they, as in both Cosmo and Wanda. Cosmo does have his stupid moments, but I think in this show he's better described as weird. Off the top of my head, I can't think of any times he specifically screws the whole group over. And this is something else. They actually allow him to have smart moments, believe it or not. Yeah, I'm gonna repeat that. They actually allow Cosmo to have smart moments in this show. It is usually because of a joke where he's rattling off some conspiracy that just so happens to be right, but I'm gonna still count that as a smart moment. And how the wishes go awry this time is so much better. This is a problem back in even the earliest of Fairly OddParents, where Cosmo and Wanda were just taking everything too literally.
Of course! Mr. and Mrs. Literal made me a shrink suit that only shrinks!
Or they were literally not granting the wish that was asked for because we need a plot.
I wish everybody didn't have to sleep!
Can't you bet you're saying, why can't we sleep?
Or literally granting the opposite of what was wished.
I don't want parents who care too much. I wish I had parents who could care less.
When the wishes go wrong here, it's usually because of some unforeseen consequences. To make the science potato work, You gotta reinvent science. It's just science. Like the green pasta. You get a lot of stuff like that in this show. Cosmo accidentally granting the wrong wish because he's about to sleep, and Hazel is mumbling in hers. And then there's this moment here.
Looks like the wish didn't affect Krentz because she's not a teacher. She's a principal. You want us to update the wish so you can be friends with her, too?
I love this moment. I kinda had to stop watching the episode for a second. Did you ever get something that you didn't know that you wanted, and then you wondered how you didn't want it before? Wanda asked Hazel to update a wish that wasn't being turned out as she desired. It sounds like a very, very small detail, but I think it goes a very long way. And I understand that a lot of this seems like small potatoes, but not paying attention to these small potatoes is how the original Fairly OddParents went so far off the rails in its later years. Quite simply put, the original show stopped caring. And if anything, moments like this, and there are a lot of moments like this, show me how much that the creators do care about what they're working with. The staff behind the show clearly watched the original Fairly OddParents, and they hold it in a high regard. There's a ton of references to it. One of the biggest villains this time around is Del Dimidome's son, and they managed to make it work. And whenever these references are brought up, it never feels shameless, or like it's just coasting on the franchise's history. One episode brings back AJ and slots him in really well, and they even make a joke about this that just works. They even aren't above referencing the stuff from the later seasons. One thing that I did notice is that the show uses a lot of the same premises from the original, and this can get down to even individual episodes. There's one episode where Hazel wishes her favorite manga character into the real world, which is less than a stone's throw away from wishing that the Crimson Chin was in the real world, just as an example. And the first few times that this came up, I was actually pretty nervous. This was a big problem with the Powerpuff Girls reboot, where they just steal plots wholesale from the original like that was kosher. But every single time, and I mean every single time, A New Wish manages to take it in an entirely different direction. We constantly get nice new takes on old premises. The biggest example of this, I think, is Hazel's frenemy, Dev. He makes his debut in the pilot, and your mind immediately goes to Tad and Chad. You know, if you can remember them. Rich shit kids, basically. And then we get Dev's backstory, which is, it's just literally Remy Bucks aplenty, to the point of getting his own fairy godparent due to parental neglect. But I think it actually works here, because they take the story a lot more seriously. A New Wish sees Dev as more than a rival. He has this on and off friendship with Hazel, because the show actually has ongoing continuity. Not so much that it's distracting if you watch it out of order, but enough that it's rewarding if you do. Unless you like random moments like this that have no context. And I think that's the magic sauce here. The reason why I like this version so much, and so much more than the original. And it's something that kinda took a while to click with me. But the original Fairly OddParents is mean. It's a mean show. Neglectful parents, evil babysitters, one-note bullies without any depth whatsoever. Now, before you say anything, this is not a criticism, by any means. It's a style, it's a flavor. And it was a flavor that was super popular in the 90s and the late 2000s. It's why something like It's a Wishful Life seemed like a good idea at one point, and why it doesn't seem like a good idea these days. There's been a lot of online discourse lately with the animation community, in particular when it comes to Smiling Friends. How it quote-unquote kicks the nihilism of Rick and Morty or BoJack Horseman in the ass.
Nothing matters because we're all gonna die someday! No, please don't kill me, please don't, no, I don't wanna die, please don't kill me, please don't.
And I think this discourse is kind of causing a reevaluation of the shows that dominated the 2010s. Once again, this isn't a criticism, but Rick and Morty and BoJack Horseman are very mean shows. And I think that the audiences at large are losing a lot of appetite for mean. I know that I am personally. This might be why Bluey, of all things, became one of the most popular cartoons of the 2020s. You know, it's not mean. People want escapism. They want tales where good triumphs over evil and love conquers all. You know, for realsies. I think right now people want to cut off the coldness of reality in their shows or whatever. And I think A New Wish really does help fulfill that desire. It's not a cold or cynical show. And shows that aren't cold or cynical, I'm appreciating more and more as I grow into jaded middle adulthood. Instead of the darkness behind the good that we've been getting for the past decade, we're back to some of the good behind the darkness. Dev here is treated like a real character, and not just an obstacle for the sake of plot, which not only sets him apart from other bullies like Francis or Vicky, but from Remy too, even if the setup is largely unchanged. And that reminds me.
Check the threads, huh? I'm your new fairy godparent. kid. I'll take you from Dev to Divine.
I thought this guy wouldn't live up to the hype, but once again, this episode is all about me eating crow. Poof, Perry, whatever you want to call him, he's another great character, because he just doesn't get along with Dev at all. Wandissimo from the original was kind of one note, just mindlessly doing whatever Remy wanted. Here though, Perry is having a hell of a time trying to make this rich brat happy, and their back and forth is constantly hilarious. You made Poof work. How the hell did you make Poof work? I mean, you had to change literally everything about his character, but you fucking made him work. That's worth, like, all of the kudos. At this point, you might be getting the impression that I think that this is a perfect show. And I mean, at current, I don't have many complaints with it. At least, at the moment. However, there is one problem that I've noticed, and I worry that it's going to come up more and more often as time goes on. So Season 1 is introducing a lot of characters. You're supposed to for Season 1, but there's a point where it becomes a little concerning. You know, we have time wishes governed by Father Time, with the help of Nick. Music wishes are governed by the Music Fairy. Science wishes are governed by the Science Fairy. Candy wishes are governed by Princess Bubblegum. On its own, this wouldn't be too much of a problem, but I feel that this is coming at the expense of more important characters. Wynn and Jasmine, Hazel's friends, suffer the most for this. They do have some screen time. Jasmine's focus episode is probably the best of Season 1. But Wynn gets the short end of the stick, something fierce. So far, I barely know anything about this kid, beyond the fact that they like skateboards, and they are the only 10-year-old on Earth who has never played Five Nights at Freddy's. Meanwhile, ASMR Kid is stuck into like every background gag possible. It's clear that the writers like using some characters more than others, primary, secondary, tertiary, be damned. And this is one of those, it's not a problem yet, but I can see where this is going, because we have seen where this road ends. What I'm saying is I don't want Wynn and Jasmine to end up like Chester and AJ from the original. And it'd be a shame if the show fell into that misstep from the original. A New Wish is probably the best cartoon reboot since DuckTales. I was watching one episode after another, just binging the whole thing whole cloth, which is incredibly rare for me these days. And I'm hoping to see good things from the show. It has loads of potential and a franchise that I thought was long south of it. Good job, guys, and good luck from here on out.